Hi, Splendidos. I'm here with Dave McKean. He's going to talk to us about his work.
Very good.
We're here in Naples.
We are, yes.
You're doing a lot of festivals around Europe?
No, I've got a little run of festivals, Bari and Kosovo and Munich and a couple of others, but yeah, they just happen to have come along in a little clump.
Is it coordinating with a new project you have?
It is a little bit. I have a book called Black Dog, which is out now in Italian, but has been out in England for a while, and French and various other countries. But it's also a performance piece, so it's a live with music work with songs and film clips and animation and a little theatre, and so we're doing that as well.
What kind of places do you perform?
We did it at the Tate Gallery in London, and we did it at the Somme Memorial Ceremony. The book and the piece is about the First World War. It's a memorial piece for 100 years after the First World War. It's about an English artist called Paul Nash, who's not really well known outside of England, but is very important in England. But it's a story of a war artist, so anybody can understand the emotions in it.
A lot of chances to meet with fans and interact with the...
A little bit. I mean, what I usually end up doing is signing for a few hours every day, and if anybody wants to chat, that's great. Being a typical English person, my language skills are zero, so unless they can speak a bit of English, we have to communicate with sign language. It's been nice to bump into old friends. Jippy is here, and I love his work, so it was nice to see him again.
So you're a fan as well?
I'm a fan of certain people, but I'm certainly a fan of his. So it's always nice to see somebody whose work you like. This is my second time at the festival in this location, which is not really Naples. I mean, we're in the boondocks here. I don't know where we are, but it used to be right in the town, and that was fantastic. And I always make a point of going to the town. Naples is bonkers.
I think so too.
The driving is appalling. The parking is just breaks all the known rules, including some rules of physics, I think. But it is one of those cities that has an extraordinary energy to it. So it's lovely to come and visit. I couldn't live here, but it's lovely to come and visit. Yeah, I work full-time as an illustrator, an artist, designer, photographer, writer, composer, musician, filmmaker, director, editor. So basically anything...
A Renaissance man.
Creativo is a nice Italian word.
Creativo.
So just creative things. And if a project offers me the chance to learn how to do something, like direct actors or edit film or write a symphonic piece of orchestral music, fantastic. I'd love to learn to do it.
Absolutely. So is comic art a primary thing for you, or just one of the hats?
No, comics are really a primary thing. Comics were my first love as a kid. I've always drawn comics. I've spent the odd year or 2 years away from comics doing other things, making a film or making theatre or doing other things, but I always end up coming back to comics. It's a place that uses what I do well. I love telling stories, and I love making images and drawing and exploring ways of telling stories, different unusual ways of telling stories. And it's a little harder to do that in film because it's very expensive, and it's a little harder to do that in theatre because it involves a lot of people. But in comics it's just me alone, and I can do exactly what I want, and so I love the medium.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of artists, and they all say comics is like a little way for them to do cinema because they can make cars crash into each other or anything.
Yeah, I actually don't like the comparison. I think comics are very much a medium on their own. I don't see them as a stepping stone to cinema, and I don't really think that they're as good at doing those sorts of things as cinema. Cinema is loud and kinetic and actually moves, and you get a bunch of people in a room and they can all laugh and cry and scream at the same time. Comics actually are quite an introverted medium. You hear the voices in your head. There is no motion or movement You have to conjure it in your own mind. So it's quite an internal voice, and I think it is very good at certain kinds of stories, actually quite thoughtful, intimate stories. So those are the kinds of stories I like to tell.
It's actually like that both ways, because for the artist, like you said, you're alone in your room.
Completely.
Everything is from one person's vision.
Completely. And so as I'm doing it, it feels very much like a personal conversation. I'm providing half that dialogue, and I'm imagining one other person sitting alone at home or wherever, reading my words, looking at my images, and it's a direct dialogue.
So that's a necessary part of the process, I guess.
That seems to me what it's essentially about.
Okay.
I couldn't just sit at home doing comics for nobody. That would seem like masturbation. That would seem redundant.
Sure.
But to have this very intimate, direct conversation to the inside of somebody's mind as they're reading it just seems very powerful to me.
And do you feel that when you talk with people that read your books?
Well, I think, as you can see here at this Mad Comic-Con, people really love comics in the same way that they love radio. People who love radio plays really love radio plays, and I think it's because there are no pictures. You have to conjure the pictures in your mind as you hear the radio. People love comics because of what's not there and because of what they're supplying to the experience. Maybe unlike a film, and obviously people love films, but films are often very passive. You know, they give you everything, and then people love the trailers and the build up to it. Often the film is 2 hours, and then it's popcorn, and we're off and kind of forgotten about it. I mean, I'm describing middle of the road films. Obviously, great films are great, but often the experience of going to a film is not as engaging as when you find a book that really speaks to you. Well, my publisher here in Italy for this book is Inchiostro, Edizioni Inchiostro, and they've been fantastically supportive. We did a lovely art book with lots of images, drawings and paintings and illustrations and all sorts of things from over the years for all kinds of projects. And now they've
put that together for your work.
Well, I put it together, but they offered me the chance to do it.
Great.
And then Black Dog is my new book out. They're very keen to publish here, so that's the new one. And I'm very happy with them. Hopefully we'll do some more books in the future.
Great.
But the state of comics in the world is going through a sort of golden age at the moment. I think lots of people think of maybe the late 30s and 40s as the golden age of comics, right, when it was
because they call it that.
Superman and Batman were created. But actually, I think this is the golden age. I've never seen more extraordinary books being published from all over the world. That's important. Lots of voices from all over the world, in every conceivable style, written in every conceivable style. Serious book publishers putting together graphic novel lines. I think this is an absolute golden time to be working in this medium. And when I started 30 years ago, and honestly, it was a little easier to make a splash because there just wasn't that much around. Now, for anybody starting out, it's really tough to make an impression because there's such a lot of books out there, but it's so welcoming. The opportunities to have your work seen are many. There are many more opportunities than I had when I started. So it's a bit of a 50-50. It's harder to make a name for yourself,
sure,
but the world is very much ready for your work if you're good. Well, I work with a chef.
Oh, on books?
On books and murals and packaging and actually designing the menu, because the menu at the restaurant has a narrative component to it.
Oh, excellent.
So my official title is Director of Story.
You want to plug the restaurant? The
restaurant is called The Fat Duck. It has 3 Michelin stars, and the chef is Heston Blumenthal, who's now a world-renowned chef. Great man.
Obviously, now there's a lot more like web comics and also web shops.
Yep.
And the comic industry has a big influence online. So, I mean, a big the online community influences comics.
Yeah, as in any medium.
Sure.
The online component is completely new since I started and has changed everything utterly. There's something about the physicality of it, the smell of it, the bounce of light off the page. I'll never tire of that. However, I think if you want to see the future of comics, or certainly a future of comics, the work that's being done online is sometimes extraordinary and offers a whole new way of speaking directly to your audience. So you don't need a publisher, you don't need those gatekeepers. It's really changed the industry completely. It's changed everything about it. I lament the closing of bookshops because I like to browse. I love just being in a bookshop. I love finding things that I would never think to look for, and I don't get that experience online really. Browsing is not the same as walking into a shop being surrounded by images, typefaces, words, names, and something just catching you out of the corner of your eye and attracting you and saying, I belong to you. You know, I don't really get that experience online, and I really miss that. So the internet has provided a lot of extraordinary things, but I think the cost is also there. I think there's also a real negative component to it. And so I'm very much trying to maximize the good things about it and really not have anything to do with the negative. Tough.
That was great.